Friday, Friday, TGIF. Whew. For this to have been an abbreviated week, this felt like a long week. I think I told you guys already that, all the kids, all three of them in the house were sick or have been sick this week. So it's made this a very trying week, but we made it to the finish line. It's Friday. And I'm feeling good about this weekend. It's been raining all week. It's just been a very cloudy and like disheveled week. The sun hasn't been out in like 4 days. It's been raining all week. Kids have been sick. Haven't really been able to get out of the house. Yeah, this sucks. But there's sun on the other side of this thing. So I can't wait. But nonetheless, it's Friday. It's going to be an abbreviated show. I want to talk some NBA. We talked about it last podcast. A lot of those things came to fruition that quick. We're going to get into an interesting quarterback conundrum that exists in San Francisco. We're going to talk about the running back position. Again, we were supposed to do this last show. We didn't get to it. So without any further ado, you are locked into the 344th installment of the Louie T Network podcast that starts now. The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the 344th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's start off with the NBA. And we talked about this concept that I brought to the table. And it's not this, earth-shattering, game-changing concept. It's pretty easy to see that everyone feels like they have a shot right now. There is no dominant team in the NBA. There's no big bad LeBron. There's no big bad Golden State Warriors. And so I told you last podcast that you're going to see a lot of teams swinging for the fences. And the Boston Celtics going out and getting Kristaps Porzingis is their, way of swinging for the fences. They are reportedly not done yet. We'll see what else they can potentially do. I was talking to a buddy of mine. I don't really know exactly what Porzingis is going to do for them. Now, the interesting thing about him, it changes some of the pick and roll defense and how they can run offensive sets and some of the matchups that they may get because he's on the court, and he's going to obviously open up the floor because he's a knockdown shooter. But is he enough? Is he the missing piece in Boston? I don't know about that. And he's going to have to stay healthy. He did last year with the Wizards, had a career year. So if he can duplicate that, it's definitely going to help that Celtics roster. But now they have a huge void at point guard, right? Tried to trade Malcolm Brogdon. Apparently, he's physically not right. And I don't know if there are lingering long-term effects there or what, but that caused the trade with the Clippers to fall through. That would have netted them Porzingis and allowed them to hold on to Marcus Smart, because Malcolm Brogdon physically wasn't able to meet the standards of the LA Clippers. That trade fell through, and they had to pivot and hence give up Marcus Smart in that Kristaps Porzingis deal. Smart was the heart and soul of that team. He had been there the longest. He was the longest tenured Celtic. He was the best defender that they had on that team. He was their defensive identity. So, it's kind of bittersweet. They're going to have to replace him, but I don't know if it'll be as hard as people are making it out to be. I think his presence in that locker room holding guys accountable will probably be missed and felt more than his actual play on the court. Easier said than done. I could be underrating his importance in Boston. It felt like they were already minimizing his importance to that team. I could remember some games where we're 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter, crucial minutes. He's on the bench. Now, generally, he'd be back in there for the final three, 3 or 2 minutes of the game or whatever. But there were plenty of times where I saw them, in some crucial situations. Marcus Smart's on the bench. So, Derek White isn't the answer. Neither is Brogdon as a starter. But if they find a guy that, that can come over there and help them, they should be fine, theoretically speaking. We'll see what they are able to do. Another big trade, Chris Paul goes from the Golden State or the Washington Wizards. Remember, he was a part of that Bradley Beal deal. And so he goes from the Wizards. Everyone knew he wasn't going to stay in Washington. The question was, where was he going to end up? And they flipped him and turned him into Jordan Poole, who is shipped off from Golden State. Remember, I brought up Jordan Poole on Wednesday, and I said that the Warriors are not happy with him. They feel like they made a mistake with his contract. He wasn't getting along with teammates. Remember the whole skirmish with Draymond Green? There were incidents where he wasn't talking to guys on the bench and Steph had to get him right. Like, he was causing problems. He was taking bad shots. I can't get that image of Steph Curry staring at Jordan Poole after he took an ill-advised shot against I want to say it was the Lakers. He was open, but he wasn't like anywhere near the three-point line. They could have gotten a better shot. Steph was hot. He should have gotten the ball back to Steph. But even if he was going to shoot that, which the Lakers were inviting him to, he needed to get much closer to the three-point line than where he was. He shot a brick, and they ended up losing that ball game. And I remember Steph's reaction to that, like, oh my God, I can't believe he just did that. I felt like Jordan Poole, because of the success of the 2022 campaign, or the 2021 rather, or was it the 2022-23 when they won the championship? So it was last season, or the season before last, when he had that breakout postseason run, and he's playing well. And the year prior to that, he played well. I think it went to his head. And he thought he was bigger and better than what he was. And he started conducting himself as if he were Steph Curry or Klay Thompson. As if he had the green light to shoot it 26 times and take away opportunities from, the guys that need to be shooting it 26 to 30 times. So they had enough of him, obviously, in Golden State, and they moved him, and I'm shocked that they were able to move him. He had one of the worst contracts in the NBA, right? So kudos to the Warriors for finding a way out of that. Now, getting Chris Paul doesn't necessarily move the needle for me. It doesn't help you if you're the Golden State Warriors. They like to run. Chris Paul is 89 years old, and he's not running. And so I think it's a contrast in styles. I think Golden State's window has closed, and this is officially closing it. Unless Jonathan Kuminga, and they said they weren't trading him this offseason, so I expect an increased role for him, especially with the departure now of Jordan Poole. Unless Jonathan Kuminga steps up and turns into the second coming of Andrew Wiggins, I can't imagine the window for the Golden State Warriors to reopen. So I don't love that trade for them. Jordan Poole wasn't playing well, but I think there was more value in him. Again, that was a nasty contract they gave him, though, and I think they were just trying to get out of it. And yikes. We'll see what the Wizards do. They got Jordan Poole now. Can he turn into a star for them? Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. But the Grizzlies on the back end of the Porzingis deal, they get Marcus Smart. And a lot of people were asking me, how do you feel? How do you feel about the trade? And here are my thoughts on the trade. One, I understand why Memphis did what they did. One of the biggest commodities Memphis was looking for this offseason was a veteran, one that could come in, lead by example, be a voice on and off the court have championship pedigree, a guy with playoff experience. They were looking for all of that in one package. Would they have preferred it to have been a wing player? Absolutely, but those weren't. Those don't exist. Okay, teams aren't giving away wings. Okay, uh, so they went after the position that made the most sense for them. I remember when my buddy had brought up what I thought at the time was asinine, that we were exploring trade options for Tyus Jones. And I was like, what? Yeah, right. With Ja being out 25 games, there's no way they're trading Tyus Jones. This is the biggest reason that we brought him on board. Then when I went and did some digging and I did research, I later found out that they had essentially promised Tyus that they were going to find him a starting opportunity around the league, and that they wanted to run it back one more time. Last year, with the success of the postseason run the year before, they wanted to run it back one more time because Tyus Jones could have left that year in free agency. Last offseason, he could have left in free agency and he would have been a starting point guard. And they said, hey, look, we want to run it back one more time here in Memphis. You're a huge part of, what we've built. We want to see if we can get a chip this year, and you're a huge part of that. We can't make that run without you. We want you here. We're going to pay you. You're going to be the highest paid backup point guard in the league, and we promise that we're going to find you a home so that you can be a starting point guard in this league. And they fulfilled their promise. So they move on from him. They get Marcus Smart. Smart is going to be exactly what the Grizzlies need on the court. Off the court, I think he may be also what they need. Now, I want to see how he fits into the culture, because one of the things about the Grizzlies culture has been everybody's had everyone's back. And Marcus Smart has been a guy that has never been afraid to say how he's felt. Sometimes he doesn't hesitate to throw teammates under the bus, but all in all, it's always for the good of the team. It's always in the spirit of doing what's right for the team to be successful, which won't be a problem in Memphis. But we've always had more of a gang mentality in Memphis, which I think was a gift and a curse. And I think Marcus Smart is going to kind of help steer us away from that. In with me saying that, I'm referring to when you're in a gang and one of your gang members does something really stupid, like something that you wouldn't even do, and you feel like, man, this is the dumbest shit ever. Now you done got us in some shit. But guess what? That's gang right there. Gang. And now you got to have his back no matter what. And so we would eat a lot of the shit that Dylan Brooks would do and say, but we would have his back because that's our brother. So that's what they would do. They would just have his back. And sometimes it was healthy, but as we saw in the playoffs, it wasn't. He didn't play well. He was talking shit, and it backfired on us. I think Marcus Smart is going to be a guy to kind of calm some of that down a bit. But I didn't love the fact that we gave up 2 first-round picks in the deal. Now, if you're a Memphis Grizzlies fan, who gives a shit about the first-round picks? We got plenty of picks. You're not going to be – we don't need any more young players. We got plenty of those as well. But I'm always big on just assets are good to have. And I don't like giving them away. But in this case, getting a guy like Marcus Smart who can also play off the ball, so when Ja comes back, he's not relegated to the bench. Marcus Smart can play pretty much 1 through 4 defensively. So, he brings the same type of intensity that Dylan Brooks brings to the table with a little bit more poise. He's not the same point guard as Tyus Jones. We know Tyus Jones led the NBA 3 years in a row in assist to turnover ratio. So we're going to miss some of the things Tyus Jones brought to the table. But from an intangible standpoint, Marcus Smart is exactly what the Grizzlies were looking for. And it's a great move from that standpoint. I didn't love what was given up. The compensation, giving up Tyus Jones and 2 first-round picks. Not a huge fan of that. But at the end of the day, what were you going to do with those first-round picks? Like our roster right now is set. We don't need any more young players. So what were you going to do with those draft picks anyway, right? So it's a solid move. I don't know if it's the difference maker, right? I don't know if that's the move that puts us over the top. You know what I'm saying? But I just look at it like this: when we're whole, a unit that puts Kiwi and Marcus Smart on the court at the same time, you got one of the best perimeter defenders in the NBA, and then you've got one of the biggest walls on the back end, one of the best rebounders, shot alterers, and big bodies in the NBA. Who we missed dearly last year in Steven Adams. Defensively, they're in the better fit for us than Marcus Smart. So it makes a lot of sense on a number of levels. I think it's a good trade. We'll see what it ultimately nets Memphis when it's all said and done. That'll be interesting. But overall, I like the trade. So I don't think we're done in the NBA seeing things transpire. I wouldn't be shocked if we saw one or two more trades. I had a laugh with one of my buddies, and then we'll move on, about the difference between the NBA and the NFL, right? An NFL player would never dare think about opting out of a $40 million year. Not a $40 million contract. A year in which you make $40 million. That's what Chris Middleton just did with the Bucks. He opted out. He had a player option and opted out of a $40 million season in order to test free agency. Now, he's going to make that money back. It may not be $40 million in 1 year, like he was about to get, but it could be 3 years for $110 million, which isn't that far away from the 40 he was going to make in one season, right? It's going to be something asinine like that. That's crazy. These NFL players are fighting their asses off. And again, I understand the concept. We've done this before. We don't need to go into the particulars. 53 versus 15. I get it. Not everybody on the roster is making a ton of money, but still, that's crazy when you think about it. Same with baseball, but baseball players earn it. Not saying that basketball players don't, but baseball players are playing 162 games. Your first real money that you see isn't until you're in the league 4 or 5 years. So, by the time you're getting that contract, there may not be another contract for you. So that's essentially your whole career's earnings right there, right? With the way it's set up in baseball now, guys are signing these 13-year deals. You're not getting another contract after that, more likely than not. You've already spent 5 years in the bigs. You just signed a 13-year deal. That's 18 years. Your career is pretty much done. But that one contract that you signed was for, $452 million. So it's just crazy, man. Anyway, I digress. Let's get to let me ask y'all something. Wembanyama, Wemby, all of this hype surrounding him. Are you guys buying this? Like, I don't think people really understand, because I've heard all this craziness about the biggest prospect ever. People forget about LeBron James. Like, seriously, LeBron was on the cover of Sports Illustrated when he was in the 11th grade. Like, what are we talking about here? And LeBron not only lived up to the hype, he exceeded it. So I think people are prisoners of the moment. There's no way he was a bigger prospect than LeBron James. Zero chance. But what do you think? Is this kid going to be everything that he's been advertised to be? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I think he's going to be good. Is he going to be this, electrifying, unicorn? Well, he's definitely a unicorn. These types of guys don't grow on trees. But is he going to be one of these players that transcends the league? is essentially what I'm asking you. Anyway, I digress. Let's get to the comments. All right, let's get to the gem dropping session, shall we? Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T-double-E. Let me open you up, get you thinking a little bit. So I just want to talk about this real quick because this has been a topic that I don't think has gotten enough run this offseason. And that's this, interesting quarterback conundrum that exists in San Francisco with the 49ers. So Brock Purdy, destroys his elbow in that loss to the Eagles. Requires surgery, timetable unknown, all of that good stuff. The assumption initially was not going to be ready for the start of the regular season. Enter in Trey Lance. And, you spent the number 3 overall pick. You traded up to get Trey Lance. Let's see what he's got. And then it became, Purdy looks like he's going to be ready. Let's see if we can't move Trey Lance. We signed Sam Darnold, so we got a competent backup. We should be good. Let's see what we can get for Trey Lance. Don't want Brock Purdy looking over his shoulder. And it just is an interesting dynamic because we heard this from Kyle Shanahan. We heard this from their GM, John Lynch. And I almost didn't want to believe them, even though I'm like, they have no reason to lie. But they said there wasn't a trade market for Trey Lance. And I'm just thinking to myself, nobody believes in Trey Lance after 2 years of him only playing in really 1 regular season game, maybe 2. That's it. People have already kind of just brushed him aside. Is that where we are with Trey Lance? Now, you say that there was no interest. What were you asking for? I'm pretty sure somebody hit the 49ers line to inquire. And once they were told what they were looking for, they was like, nah, we good. So the question was, were there no offers or were there no real offers? Right? None that you would really consider. Because those are 2 different things. Because I find it hard to believe that everyone's giving up on Trey Lance. Now, I felt like Lance would need seasoning when he got to the NFL. But I thought he'd fit Kyle Shanahan's offense to a T because of his skill set. But remember, this guy only played 1 year. And what I'm really starting to lean towards, and I've heard GMs say this, and I've heard people in high places in the NFL speak this before, but I don't really give a shit what other people say. I have my own philosophical beliefs. I'm starting to believe this now. And I think the league is starting to shift towards this now. You're better off with a quarterback who played 2, at a bare minimum 2, but you want the guy that played 3 or more years of college football. Most likely, if he's that dude, then he started as a true freshman, right? And he played 3 years and he's gone after his junior season. Some places, you got to wait your turn. It just is what it is. You might be that dude, but you got to wait. And so you only played 2 years. In certain instances, you waited a little bit longer and you only played 1 year, i.e. Mac Jones, for instance. And Mac had some spot duty when Tua went down and things of that nature. But what I'm starting to gather is that these quarterbacks with that 1 year of experience, like Trey Lance, like Dwayne Haskins, like Mitchell Trubisky, that shit is unhealthy. You really don't want the QB with 1 year of starting experience coming into the league. That's not what you're looking for. That's why I'm looking at Anthony Richardson and I'm going, not really sure about you. Now, again, he had spot duty the year prior, got injured, XYZ. So it's not like he only started 1 year and he's only got 12 starts under his belt. He's got probably like 16, 17, maybe 18 starts from the year prior, about 4 or 5. But you want guys that have started multiple years in college football. The more experience, the more they've seen, the better the transition from college to pro game. And I think Trey Lance struggled with that transition, you know, and they see him every day in practice, so they know what they have or don't have. But clearly, you know, Brock Purdy knocked their shoes off, and his performance speaks for itself. I mean, up until that injury and the loss to the Eagles in the playoffs, he hadn't lost a game. So he played well. They feel like he's the starter if he's healthy. All reports and all signs right now point to Brock Purdy being ready for week 1 for the San Francisco 49ers, which then begs the question, where does that leave Trey Lance? They brought in Sam Darnold, who I think is probably going to be QB2. So where does that leave Trey Lance? And is there absolutely no market for this kid? I mean, none. I mean, at this point now, you have to say no. You know, everybody's gotten, you know, the game of musical chairs at the quarterback position is set. Whether you went out and got a veteran, or you got a guy in the draft, or you did both, as we saw a lot of teams do, double dip. I don't think anybody's looking for a young quarterback right now. But that could all change. 1 or 2 injuries in camp, and voila, someone could be interested. Highly unlikely that you're looking to bring in a young guy, doesn't know your playbook, not going to be ready for week 1. We saw a veteran in a similar situation in Baker Mayfield get traded for close to training camp, come in and just not fare well in Carolina. So that's not really a good look, especially for a young quarterback. What if Brock Purdy isn't what he was last year, though? You're looking to move on from Trey Lance. You're ready to wash your hands clean of that situation. Look, there's nothing wrong with admitting you made a mistake. You traded up. You gave away valuable draft assets and capital to get Trey Lance. And you're ready to move on and admit, hey, we got that one wrong. And that's okay. And I think the reason Kyle Shanahan is more receptive to that is because he was a part of the whole Robert Griffin III, Kirk Cousins situation in Washington. He saw it firsthand. They traded up for Robert Griffin III up to number 2. They took Kirk Cousins in the 4th round, and the 4th round guy was better than the number 2 overall pick guy. And it took them too long to move on to that guy, right? And look, at the end of the day, Robert had an amazing rookie season. The second year and the drama that followed was a mess, and they were out before they could really commit to Kirk Cousins. But they knew Kirk could play in this league. They knew that. And if they had it all over to do again, they probably would have pulled the trigger on Kirk a little bit sooner, moving on from Robert once they saw where that situation was heading and how he was playing. But that's nor here nor there. The experience that Kyle Shanahan gained from that situation, I think, is what is driving him and motivating him with this situation, right? I traded up to number 3 for a kid, super talented, but the 7th round guy is performing better than the 3rd overall pick. And I don't need to lament the fact that we traded up, gave away assets to go up and get him. Let's just go with the guy that played the good football that got us one step from the Super Bowl. But what if he's not that? What if the league catches up to him? What if he starts to struggle and you've already given up on Trey Lance? Then what? Sam Darnold isn't the answer, right? It's an interesting dynamic, because if you do trade Trey Lance, or you just condemn him to 3rd QB, he's not even active on game days, and you pretty much have spoken. If he can't beat out Sam Darnold for the 2 hole at the quarterback position, which you brought Sam Darnold there to be your backup, you've pretty much shitted on Trey Lance and said, hey, we don't need you. You tried to trade him already. He knows that. Where's his psyche? I said all of that to say this. You better be right about Brock Purdy. Because The prevailing thought was at the end of last season, there's going to be a real true competition between Purdy and Lance. And that's what I thought they should have done. May the best man win. We don't have any favorites. We're just going to go in here. You guys have the script. All right. You've both been here long enough. You know the playbook. Best man wins. And then you go from there. But they've essentially, come out, have crowned Brock Purdy the starter. And I don't have a problem with that unless he doesn't pan out. Then you've screwed the pooch. You really botched this situation. And Trey Lance may be trash. And they may have already identified that for all we know. But I thought the way that they've played this hand has been a little bit sketchy, if you ask me. Being so demonstrative that, hey, it's Brock Purdy. And if he's healthy, he's the guy. No, we saw it last year. We saw what he looked like. We get why you're doing that. But did you have to do that? Especially when there were no takers for Trey Lance. And now he's still here. This is the second year that the 49ers have done some awkward shit with their quarterbacks. And then ultimately had to stare those quarterbacks in the face. Last year, it was Jimmy Garoppolo. They tried to trade him. He had the shoulder injury, had to have surgery. Nobody wanted to deal with that. So he ended up on the roster anyway. It was weird, right? They still ended up needing him. Now they try to trade Trey Lance for the second year in a row. They try to trade a quarterback, can't, and now he's staring them in the face. It's really weird. But we'll see. Again, you rather have too many than not enough. They seem to have a surplus in San Francisco. Again, we don't know how good or bad Trey Lance is. That's the crazy part for me is the brother has only played in 2 games. 2 games. That's it. How do we know he's trash? It's the equivalent of Jordan Love in Green Bay. We have no idea. The man has played in 2 games, 2 whole games. We have no idea what Jordan Love is in Green Bay. None. He's played in 2 games. Two totally different situations, and the handling of those situations, we'll see if the outcomes are the same or totally different. Anyway, I digress. So let's get to the comment section and social media maneuvers. I'm a midday marauder. Y'all know what it is. If y'all are out there, you want your comment read, use the hashtag LouieTLive to have your comment read on the air if it is pertinent. If you want to jump straight to the front of the line, Super chats are the way to do that. I will be honest with you. We are pressed for time today as it is Friday. And, I don't do long podcasts on Friday. So I can't assure you that I'm going to get to your comment. So if you are dying for your comment to be read, I surmise that a super chat would be in your best interest. So with that said, let's get to the comment section, see what we have, and see what you guys have to say. Derek B writes, you put way too much stock in the Dallas game. The stakes for the Cowboys are debatable, but there were 0 stakes for the Commanders. No pressure. Games are easy, meaningless. It does not matter. For Sam, that wasn't a meaningless game. There was no meaningless aspect to that. If he goes out there and stinks it up, he may not get another shot. You know why Washington had confidence in rolling with Sam? They could tell you all they want about his practice habits, and I can talk to you till I'm blue in the face, Tar Heel blue at that, about what he did in college or what he did in the preseason last year. All of that is nice, but if he goes out and he stinks it up against Dallas and he doesn't perform well and we get our doors blown off, do you think they're going to go into the next offseason talking about Sam Howell as the quarterback? There was a ton of pressure on him to go out there and perform, and he did. Okay, we could sit here and debate about what the Cowboys were playing for and not playing for. I don't give a shit. Doesn't really matter to me what they were playing for. You have to put your best foot forward anytime you step on the field, and that's what Sam did. All right, and he showed enough in that game, and you couple that with all the practice habits and things that they saw throughout the year, and they saw it culminate in one start that gave them the confidence that they felt like was necessary to feel emboldened enough to say, hey, he's the guy. We can roll with Sam next year. Not draft a quarterback, not go after anybody in free agency, no trades, none of that shit that we've done the last 2 years and failed at. Nah, we just going to roll with Sam. Young quarterback that would have been, drafted a lot higher in a different draft class. That's the thing that's funny. Because if Trey Lance were a 5th round pick, we wouldn't even be having a discussion about it, right? Sam Howell, if he was a 1st round pick, we wouldn't even be having a discussion about Washington. Oh my God, they got the worst quarterback situation in such and such, and this, that, and the third. But because he's a 5th round pick, this perception, the narrative changes, it switches just because of where you're drafted, right? It's amazing how that works, by the way. People are brainwashed that way. But at the end of the day, that game against Dallas meant a whole hell of a lot to a whole hell of a lot of people. Because I can tell you as a fan, as much as I was like, to hell with that Dallas game, I don't give a shit, that left a very, very palatable taste in our mouths, right? You get your ass handed to you after losing to Cleveland and your season's done, and you get your ass handed to you by your hated divisional rival as they head to the playoffs. And we're feeling totally different about the offseason. All the moves that they made would have been fine, but we still would have been like, yeah, Ron needs to go. Not just Scott Turner, Ron needs to carry his ass as well. And still, there are a lot of people that feel that way. But beating Dallas in that manner, going into the offseason with a little bit of momentum, seeing Sam Howell play the way that he did against Dallas. And again, we could talk about the players Dallas had on the field. You could talk about the mindset the Cowboys had, knowing that they were already in the playoffs. We could talk about a meaningless game for Washington, all of that shit. None of that matters because for Sam Howell, that was a playoff game. And he said it already. That was the most important game I'd played in my life. Because again, he stinks it up. They're going to do something at quarterback. Trust me. They're not going to sit here and run it back with a guy that got his brains bashed in against the Cowboys in what you just deemed a meaningless game. There was definitely pressure on Sam Howell. May not have been pressure on the entire team, but that doesn't matter. He went out and did his job. So I disagree with that. Red Wing says, just want to let you know you missed some super chats sent at the very beginning of last night's stream. Had a couple of questions. I had a couple asking your opinion on the Porzingis and CP3 trades. That's interesting that you say that because normally I don't miss super chats that much. And there weren't that many people in the comment section last night. There weren't as many people watching. So that is a little strange to me, but I can't say that you're wrong because I was late last night. So being that I was late, that could have allowed some comments to accumulate. So here they are right here. So Miss Perry sent them to me. So here they are. All right. Quentin Ruiz, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you who wrote. Wimby, baby, we back on top, GSG. I'm anxious to see what he turns out to be. Is he this transcendent talent, or is he overhyped? Red Wing 01, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Wizards, thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Who writes, Wizards been busy. As a Grizzlies fan, what's your opinion on the Porzingis trade? I'll just say it was a little bit better for the Wizards than the original deal with the Clippers. I pretty much said everything. I will say this. I don't know what the hell the Wizards are supposed to do with 57 second-round picks. Have at it. Knock yourself out. If you've got a great GM, maybe in a really good draft, it works out for you. If you get 57 second round picks in bad drafts or all the talent is gone, good luck with that. I don't want to say that you can't find talent in the second round, because Joker was a second round pick, and we can go down the list of guys that have ended up being quality NBA players who were second round picks. But it's like finding a needle in a haystack. Once you get to the second round, good luck. You're definitely going to need it. But they did get a couple of first rounders out of the deal, but they got like 60 million second round picks. People have been giving away second rounders like their mind's gone bad. So we'll see what ultimately comes about. Look, this is what the Wizards wanted when they went out and they sought after a new GM and a new coach and this is what they were looking to have happen. All right. They were looking to blow this thing up, start from scratch, and allow this new GM to come in and kind of lay down the foundation his way. That's what they're doing. And now we're going to see what he's able to construct. It's hard in the NBA, man, because again, in order to win and win consistently, you've not only got to build a rock solid roster, but you've also got to get lucky, whether it's the ping pong balls or drafting a guy that turns out to be a home run. A lot of times with teams like the Spurs, that's not luck. The Oklahoma City Thunder, that's not luck. That's shrewd moves and skill, right? The Spurs didn't guess right on Kawhi Leonard. They traded for him. Like, they saw the talent, they saw the upside. They said, we love George Hill, but we think Kawhi could be a star in this league. So they traded away a guy they loved in George Hill to get their hands on Kawhi Leonard. And all of the foreign players that they've drafted, Tony Parker and Ginobili and Patty Mills, all these guys that they've ended up getting their hands on some way or another, that's not luck, that's skill. OKC, how they draft, how they end up where they are, and players that they acquire, why they're so young and talented all the time, that's shrewd moves. That's not luck. He's not guessing, okay? We'll see what your GM is all about, because you're going to have to make some shrewd moves. You're going to have to find a way to get guys that fit what you need, and you're going to have to find a star. And those aren't easy to come by. Red Wing 01, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes? CP3 is now a Warrior. Name a more unholy union. Truthfully, I got love-hate relationship with him, but the Warriors are all hate. Poole is a nice ad. I can't stand CP3. You know how I feel about him. He's public enemy number one for me. I can't stand Golden State either. So it's a match made in heaven. I did not want, like, I remember at one point they were saying, could Chris Paul end up in Memphis? I was like, hell no. I'd hate to root against my own team. Hell no. My disdain for Chris Paul is greater than my love for the Memphis Grizzlies, if that makes any sense. Probably doesn't, but that's just the way it is. So I'm glad that didn't materialize. And honestly, I was like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, because he doesn't fit anything that we're looking for. Doesn't have, a ton of playoff experience winning a damn thing. He's 89 years old. He can't really play at the level that he once did. Even the mid-range isn't falling anymore. Like, if he gets out of bed wrong, he could miss 15 games. I'm good. There is no upside to adding Chris Paul to your roster. And now, I can just root against the team that I root against anyway, and Golden State Warriors. So it's perfect. Glad he landed where he landed. Jordan Poole is interesting. You're eating a ton of money there. And if that doesn't work out, all you did was get rid of Bradley Beal's contract and inherit another dirty, nasty, contract. However, Poole has tremendous upside. And if he can somehow, be like Kyle Kuzma was for you and just, reestablish who he is in this league, you could have hit on a big time, player. He's not a number one. He's probably not a number two either, but he's a great third option, which is what Bradley Beal was. You find yourself in the same predicament that you were in before. However, you have draft capital. You have, the means to move up in the draft and potentially get your hands on a star player. You just got to draft correctly. That's what it's all about now if you're the Wizards. All right, so sorry for missing those super chats. I don't know how they didn't end up on my screen. That's crazy to me, but anyway, let's see. Red Wing says, hold on, I got a super chat. Let me get to that. LT, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, what if Howe is good but loses to DJ, Dak, and Hurts? If he's good and he loses to those quarterbacks this year, it is what it is. But if he's good, then we'll get him next time. That's how you approach that, you know. But we're not getting rid of a good quarterback because he's not winning games in the division right away. Now, if this is a theme throughout his career, then something has to be done because you got to be able to beat the, you know, teams in your division. And so he's off to a great start. Already beaten one of the quarterbacks in the division in Dak Prescott, something that no other Washington quarterback seemed to be able to do other than Alex Smith. So that's a good thing, right? But, you know, we'll see. Again, that was week 18. You know, Les was on the line for really both teams. Dallas was playing for a chance at the division crown, but the likelihood it was the Eagles were going to take care of business against the Giants, and they did. But we'll see when there's a little bit more at stake next year. You know, week, what is it, 4, when we see the Eagles for the first time. We'll see what happens and whatever happens thereafter. Red Wings 01 writes, I will say I like the Porzingis deal with the Grizzlies a bit more for the Wizards than the original deal for the Clippers. I'm excited to see what Tyus can do in a larger role. I mean, this isn't the first time he's been a starter, so he did it really well for his hometown team of the Timberwolves. I already know what you're getting. You're getting a great, you know, floor general, right? He's going to set the table for everyone. Tremendous. I think he's got one of the best floaters in the NBA. He's right up there with Trae Young in that department. You know, he plays at his own pace. He's a streaky shooter, so you might catch him over a 10-game span and Tyus is shooting 42% from 3, and you're like, yo, this shit is lovely. And then Tyus could go into a hole, and we saw it in the playoffs. He can't hit the backside of the you know, a barn, right? And he's shooting, you know, 31% from 3. So it usually averages itself out, and he's probably going to be somewhere around that league average of 36, 37%. But you're going to get a really smart, high IQ basketball players who's going to set guys up, make the right play time and time again. He's going to put you in a position to be successful. Are you going to put enough pieces around him to force him, to allow him to not feel forced to do more than he should have to? Because while he can score 30, that's not what you want him having to do or feeling the need to have to do. So anyway. This will be the last one, and then we'll move on to the final segment of the show. Red Wing 01 writes, I really want to see Gibson unleashed in the receiving game. Bubble screen, seam routes, wheel routes, you name it. He doesn't have to compete with JD anymore, so it's now or never. If he can't have a pseudo, and I don't want to say breakout because I felt like his rookie season was his best season. And that was a damn good season. He had over 1,000 yards of total offense. He had, you know, 11 rushing touchdowns, probably 2 or 3 receiving touchdowns. He was phenomenal in his rookie season. I would like to see, and I can't imagine that this is going to be 1,000-yard season for him. I think he rushed for over 1,000 in his second year, but he was less effective as a pass catcher. Obviously the fumbles existed, and his yards per carry were way down in his second year. And they were down, I think, even more last year, if I'm not mistaken. So I'd like to see that yards per carry go back up. I'd like to see him be more dynamic as a runner when he touches it. I I'd like to see him out in space. I just envisioned him being more like he was utilized in the Jacksonville game. Go back and watch that week 1 game against Jacksonville and see all the ways that they got him the football and how he touched it. I just envisioned him being that kind of a player. He was one of the best players on the field offensively for Washington in that week 1 win against Jacksonville. I just always envisioned him being more of that kind of a player. But we'll see. I'm excited for him going into a contract here. Anyway, I digress. So let's get to the final segment of the show in garbage time. So the running back position is under a microscope. And I'm glad, because I've been talking about this for years and how disrespected this position is, how teams have these preconceived notions about running backs. A lot of people have philosophical beliefs on, what you should do with running backs, how you should spend draft capital on them. You should never draft a running back in the first round. I mean, a lot of these takes are, and honestly, if I'm a running back, I don't want to be taken in the first round. I would like the money that the first round provides you with, unless I'm getting drafted in the top 10 and I'm making some real coin. I don't want to be the 22nd pick in the first round. That doesn't really appeal to me. Again, it's better money than being the 42nd pick or the 62nd pick or the 82nd pick, but I much rather get to my second contract faster is what I'm getting at, which is why it's not the worst thing in the world that Saquon and Josh Jacobs had their 5th-year options declined, because it allowed them to get to the bag faster. That said, it sucks, and I've said this already. Parents of kids who are interested in playing football, do not allow your sons to become running backs. There is no future in that position. Okay. They don't get paid what they're supposed to get paid. And what's interesting about contracts a lot of times is that it's supposed to be a healthy balance between paying you for what you've already provided us and what you're going to provide us into the future. Okay. It's supposed to be a healthy balance between what you've already done, because I'm not paying you good money if you haven't done it already. But if I don't think there's a chance that you're going to be able to continue that into the future, why would I pay you for what you've already done? Like, that's what it seems like a lot of people have gotten caught up in with the running backs, and it's hurt that market. Todd Gurley is the poster child for that, right? Where you pay a running back this inordinate amount of money, and then he breaks down on you right in front of your very eyes, and you're like, oh my God, we just spent X amount of millions of dollars and we're not going to receive a return on our investment. You can't pay running backs for what they've already done solely, right? That's a mistake. But it's okay to pay a running back for what they've done and what you think they can continue to do for you. That's okay. You're allowed to do that. And it seems like teams are unwilling to do that. And the one position you can't allow yourself to be strung along at is running back. Like, if I'm a defensive end, if I'm a wide receiver, if I'm a safety, linebacker, et cetera, I'll take your funky 1-year deal, your funky franchise tag for a year, and make whatever 14, 15, 20, whatever $1 million that tag is going to assign me. I'll do that. For running back, that's not a smart move, because one, running backs aren't making a boatload of money. Two, you have to get to the long-term bag as a running back. And every year that ticks away is 1 year you're less likely to get to the bag, right? The closer you get to 30, the less likely it is someone's going to give you the bag, i.e. Austin Eckler in LA with the Chargers. Look at what he's meant to that organization and that franchise. They refuse to give the man a new contract. He's grossly underpaid. But they look at him and they say, bro, you 28 years old. Ooh, I would love to pay you. And I know you've done so much for us. And I know you were our only offense, pretty much the last 3 years. but you're almost 30. So I can't commit to you long term. Sorry. And nobody else is looking to give the Chargers anything for him. So he's stuck. So he's got to play another year under a lousy deal. And then after this season, what do you think he's going to get? You think somebody's going to pay him? He's that much closer to 30. You think somebody's going to break him off next year? You're right. So it's a tough position. Melvin Gordon just spoke out and said, man, it sucks being a running back. Sucks. The three free agent backs, the best three backs available in free agency, all got franchise tagged. And I will be shocked if more than one of them reach a long-term deal. I think Saquon's going to reach a long-term deal with the Giants. I don't see Josh Jacobs reaching a long-term deal with the Raiders. They did him dirty. Remember that they had that man playing in the Hall of Fame game last year. Like the third possession of the game, this man was still in. I'm like, all right, this is disrespectful at this point. Remember me coming on and talking about, like, what are we doing right now? They treating Josh Jacobs like he's some type of bum. I mean, it was absolute disrespect from day one. Josh McDaniels and company walked in the building. Shit was sickening. Then they didn't pick up the fifth-year option. He goes out. He was the only thing that kept that Raiders offense afloat. Now they want him, but they don't want to give him long-term money. They want to give him one more year of service, probably use him up for one more year and then let him walk. That shit sucks as a running back, man. Dalvin Cook has been, a guy that's fought through injuries, consistently posting over 1,000 yards rushing, did everything you could ask for. And the Vikings are like, bro, we're going to pay you to walk away, leave. Like, that doesn't even make sense. I'm lost. Like, what are we doing here again? And it's going to be a little while before he finds work. But you look at the free agent market, with guys looking for work. I would have loved to have had Jerick McKinnon. He had to go back to Kansas City, and I get it. He's 30 years old. But he signed for like $1.2 million. Jerick McKinnon is a dynamic back. He signed for $1.2 million. Washington fans were like, man, J.D. McKissick, he's this, that, and the third. That man got a 2-year, $7 million deal last offseason. Like, running backs aren't making real money for real. And the ones that are, I mean, they got to do everything to get to that money. Everything. Like Jonathan Taylor, the best thing that happened to him was that he wasn't picked in the first round. He's going to get to the bag faster. But Brandon Marshall was on a podcast recently, and he made a statement to the effect of, and I'm paraphrasing, that these franchise tag running backs need to make a statement. They need to force these teams into giving them contracts that they deserve. Reestablish the running back market and start to open people's eyes to what's going on with these running backs. And I don't know if that they're in a position to do that. But everyone's taking notice now. I don't know if you saw Rich Eisen on his podcast, but he went berserk about what the Vikings did to Dalvin Cook. Then he had Cook on his show maybe 3 days later after he went off. It went viral. And Cook ended up coming on his show because he probably saw it. And he was like, I just want to be where I'm wanted. It's crazy how the running backs are being treated, man. It's crazy. And everybody has this dime a dozen mentality. Like, yo, don't pay him. You just go get another one in the draft. That's a tough way to live, man. It's a tough way. Some really good running backs right now in the league, and they may fall victim and prey to mistakes that have been made by past organizations or players that didn't necessarily pan out after getting paid. And that sucks because I'm not him, or we're not them. But we'll see what happens, man. Running back position is definitely under a scope. There's a real conversation being had about the running back position. Something that doesn't really happen that often. The real conversations being had. Anyway, I got another super chat. This one is from Mike Jank. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, does it show my milestone super chat, Louie? Lou? You know what? That's on me. So it doesn't on the screen in front of me, but I have a third screen up. But I usually don't check that for comments. But I said I had to be better at that because when you are a member and you have a milestone comment, it does not show up on my laptop in front of me. So Mike Jank, I see your comment, and it does not show up at all. It's not like it doesn't highlight it. It just doesn't show up at all on the screen in front of me. So Mike Jank writes, what's up, Big Lou? Just tapping in. Go Birds. I'll be there on October 29th looking for revenge. Looking for revenge. Have a good and safe weekend, my guy. Likewise, Mike Jank. Likewise, man. Yeah. Use the hashtag when you do that. I guess I gotta start telling people to, because at least I can see it on my screen. I can't see it at all on my screen. But yes, sorry about that. I got to be better. You just reminded me that I need to be better. Anyway, I digress. So that's gonna do it for me, your man Louie T. And one more thing on that running back situation. Josh Jacobs said about the Raiders, he just put out in a tweet, bad business. Like nothing else, just bad business. They're clueless in Vegas, man. I was talking to my buddy. He's like, yo, this is what I was afraid of. I said, the minute y'all got Josh McDaniels, I told you this was going to happen. He's terrible. He's the worst. He's proving it again. Anyway, I digress. Y'all have a great weekend. And I look forward to coming back on the other side of that weekend and chopping it up with y'all. See if anything else happens in the NBA. It should be quiet on the NFL front. Again, this is the one little period of time where there's absolutely nothing going on. So barring like DeAndre Hopkins finding a new home or anything like that, should be pretty quiet on the NFL front. But anyway, I digress. You guys get out of here. I'll see you next time on the Louie T Network podcast. If you are a music fan and you love the Louie T Network, I mashed the two together, and MusicHead University is what you get. And so I have another channel, MusicHead University. I'm posting a new upload as we speak right now. As soon as this is done, that new upload will be up. And new uploads are every Monday, Wednesday, Friday on normal weeks. So if you're a music fan and you love the Louie T Network, you'll love MusicHead University. Give it a spin. If you're not interested, don't sub up, don't watch. But if you are, give it a check, a look, see. If you enjoy it, sub up. There's plenty more of great content where that came from. So with that said, enjoy your weekend. Take care. God bless. Good night. The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. Music Heads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description. LouieTeeNetwork.